All right, we're in the interview section here of the Scale Model Podcast, and Terry once again is our official Scale Model Podcast show booker because he always finds all these awesome people. Because Jeff and I have no friends, I guess. So Terry manages to come to the rescue. So go ahead, Terry, and introduce our distinguished guest tonight.
I just keep mining my contacts from Wonderfest and other shows, and that's the value of going to shows. Ross Waddell, another Canadian, so a countryman. Not my countryman, but I enjoy stopping by once in a while the Canadian embassy down at Wonderfest, though I can't tolerate that many cigars in one spot.
Sorry.
Ross has been doing demos at Wonderfest on electronics for quite a while now, for 20 years probably.
Yeah.
By this point. And in these days, that includes Arduino boards and motors and all this kind of stuff it takes to really bring these big enterprises, especially, to life. And I know we've shared the link in the past in progress, but now it's completed, is it?
Yes, it's all done.
Big 1/350th scale original series enterprise with more than all the bells and whistles. It's amazing. We have a link to the Flickr set in the show notes. So have a look at that, including some videos. You get to see how much wiring Ross has stuffed into this kit. We'd like to talk about what it takes to do that. How beginners can get a good start, and how advanced people can get a hold of some of this stuff and really bring it to life. So welcome, Ross.
Well, thank you, Terry. That was a fabulous introduction. You and I have known each other for probably over 20 years now.
Over 20 years, I'm sure.
Over 20 years. My first Wonderfest was 1999, and I think I met Terry, if not the first year, then the second or third.
Well, that was my first year, so yeah.
Oh, there you go.
There we
go. And for a while, I was working the contest with John Davis and Drew Roberts, and then now George Salidas, and was doing the photos. So Terry was a huge help to me in trying to get the better photos that we would present at the ceremony.
And we have left a series of lighting solutions in a pile in the corner over the years.
We have. They don't do the ceremony anymore, so that's over and done with. But nonetheless, I appreciate all your help. Similar, I guess I'm a similar age group as all of you. I started building models when I was 5. My very first kit was the Aurora Batman that my mom built and painted at the kitchen table for me. And I've been building models ever since. But I fell in love with Star Trek, as I'm sure a number of your listeners and everybody here, and have been building the Enterprise in all of its forms, if not they're originally the AMT 1657 scale, I think, that was released in the late 60s. And in the mid to late 70s, I suppose, I was subscribing to a magazine called Starlog. I don't know if people remember Starlog.
Oh yeah.
And finding that magazine was a huge treat because it was all about science fiction, but behind the scenes, the people who make the magic. It had the first photos of Star Wars before it came out. But in the back in the classified section, there was an ad from a guy named Paul M. Newitt who did SFAM, Starfleet Assembly Manuals, and he was advertising his third volume, which was super detailing the AMT Star Trek Enterprise and adding lights by his custom circuit board, the LS100A. And I sent away for it. I got all the components. I sorted it up very badly, but got it to work. And I built my first Enterprise using his kit and fiber optics, probably in the late 80s or so. I built another one as a wedding gift. I don't recommend that. I'm not sure everybody appreciates a built-up Enterprise as a wedding gift, but my friend across the street was also a model builder, and he never finished his, so I thought I'd do one for him. So I built 2 AMT kits with all the fiber optics and lights, and then I decided I wanted to do the 22-inch cutaway. If everybody remembers,
Yes.
AMT Ertl released that in the mid-90s. A slightly larger kit, a little bit more difficult because it was cutaway. But I decided that I was going to start designing my own custom circuit boards. This was using, back in those days, the discrete components, the 555 timer chip and the 4017 decade counter. I'm just throwing numbers at you. You don't need to care about that. But ultimately, what in the latter years I've discovered is the incredible simplicity and ease of Arduinos. So if you want to do anything, if you want to flash a light, if you want to drive a motor, if you want to change an RGB LED from copper to blue, like on the Refit Enterprise when it goes to work, all these things are so incredibly easy with Arduino because it has such an incredible support behind it. So there's a huge, I mean, it's the biggest hobbyist electronics group in the world. And there are libraries that do everything you want. Whenever I've done the demos at Wonderfest, I've always said, Google is your friend. If you just say Arduino, blink an LED, using a pulse width modulation to make it fade up and fade down, you get a library, you get example codes, you get everything you need. So I started the demos with Kirk Schermerhorn, who's a friend of Terry and I, way back when, but then started doing PIC microcontrollers, which was, it's much more complicated. You get the individual chip, so you have to do everything that controls that chip separately. But then once Arduinos came along, every demo I've done since then has been on Arduinos. And I did the lighting effect for Kit from a Knight Rider, the deflector dish for the refit going from copper to amber, motor control, speed up, speed down, reverse direction, things like that. I posted all those links for my stuff in the notes for anybody to use. The other thing I did is, as I started this 1350 TOS Enterprise project that you mentioned, I created 4 circuit boards in the end, I think, to do everything I wanted to do on it. But I've made them, everything's available in my Google Drive. That's also in the show notes. So if you're able to send a board away and get it made at a board shop, and there's one in the US that is incredible, OSH Park, they'll make a circuit board for you in a couple of weeks and send it to you pretty cheaply. And then if you can get the components and you can program an Arduino, you can do everything I did to build this enterprise. One of my lights, I think Terry, having done demos at Wonderfest, probably for the same length of time I have, probably feels the same. For me, the hobby is at its best when you share what you know and you help people learn stuff. So my goal was to give everything away. If you want to do what I've done, you can go off and do it.
That's absolutely true. I mean, that's why I keep doing them, and I love to find a partner to do them with as well.
Yeah.
It makes a big difference. Not only that you can trade back and forth, and they aren't watching you prep for the next thing; they're watching somebody else while you prep for the next thing. But there's the banter. There's the monitoring the crowd, which you can't do while you're talking, and all that stuff.
I know you used to do them with Mark, and he is sorely missed.
Yeah.
And those were great demos. I've unfortunately, most of the time I do it on my own, but then I usually have Brian Ludden, who does the hardware demos for Wonderfest. He organizes that. He usually stays in the room and he'll banter with me and call me names and do things that help break things up when, as inevitably something goes wrong during a demo. Something always goes wrong during a demo. But I would love to have a partner to do it the next time. I'm doing one this year, actually, Terry. Brian wants me to bring my Enterprise and just talk about what I did and go over everything. So hopefully that will happen.
Yeah, that's great. Well, even if you just need an MC to kind of work with you, let me know.
Oh, I'd love to do that with you, Terry. That would be terrific.
Yeah.
Ross, have you ever considered just having a topic, like one session on what is the one correct paint color for the Enterprise?
What fistfights would break out in the crowd, Jeff? That would be. It's funny you say that because obviously there is a huge discussion about what is it the screen color you're after, or is it the actual 11-foot studio miniature? I was fortunate enough to go to the Smithsonian when they were just about to start the renovations in 2015. So they had the model on display in their Uber-Hazy facility, and Brian and I went and checked it out. And of course, the colors that you see of the 11-foot miniature, if you wanted to paint it like that, go right ahead. I support anybody who wants to paint a model any way they want. But of course, who who's the guy who did all the designs for the original series Enterprise? Jeffries.
Jeffries. Yeah.
It's the Jeffries tube. You got to remember the Jeffries tube.
I was in the Jeffries tube at the Ticonderoga original series set tour. I was right there. Matt Jeffries designed the colors so that when they were lit on certain, Kodachrome film stock would look a certain way. So when I painted mine, I tried to emulate what I thought it looked like on screen. Terry, I don't know where all of you, I could see maybe some of you build models in a basement like I do.
Yep.
The problem with building models in a basement when you have, you try to put as much light in so you can see everything, is you bring it upstairs and suddenly the paint is a little darker than you thought it would be. Because you've got all this light downstairs, it's really low, and you think, this looks great. You take it upstairs.
Don't.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's tough. You've got to bear in mind where it's going. And for miniatures, it's worse when you're judging it. You have to put light on them because, you aren't running, I don't know how many lumens or 300 watts of light on your bench.
Yeah,
that doesn't exist in a show.
It certainly doesn't. Nor would you want it. You go blind.
Yeah.
So I did I did my own colors using Mr. Color Lacquer. I made the big mistake of buying a whole bunch of colors and adding a whole bottle of black and then having to buy like 30 whites in order to counteract the one bottle of black. That was just way too much. But yes, I have some left over. So if I ever build another one, I'll have all the paints. So that's how I got started. I don't know if anybody has any questions for me.
Well, I just was going to say something for the listeners' benefit.
Yeah.
While you're listening to this discussion, I highly recommend going to the show notes and clicking on that link to the Flickr group of pictures because it is inspiring to see. And it's always nice to see just how messy the inside of these things are.
Yes.
It's funny. I tried so hard to do to tape down all the wires, and I used the cool hot glue to hold everything in place and make it as neat as can. But by the end, you're just jamming it in there. You're just, especially in the secondary hull, I had the nav dish with the last thing to go in and all the pushing. There's a circuit board behind that does all the lights for the warp engines and the running lights and strobes. And it's nasty.
Yeah.
So it's not pretty. I also made one mistake. Well, it's not really a mistake. It was an aesthetic choice which didn't work out. In the original edition of the Polar Lights, the premiere edition that came out, they had semi-opaque white window pieces, which I thought, well, A, it'll look great when it's not lit, and then B, it'll diffuse the light. It'll look great when it is lit. But the semi-opaque thing is the key. It's too opaque. So I had to redo all the lights and put a light box around each one to try and get the lights as close to it as possible. If I was to do another one, I would use the clear inserts and just maybe put a light ghosting of white over to diffuse it. But
even probably just depending on how dull your dull coat is, that might be enough as a diffuser.
Yeah. And one thing I know George Salidas talks about this a lot when he's judging models and looking at models, is one of the things that I really wanted to avoid is that over bright window look that you get on models. When it looks like, the windows are so bright that if you were standing in that room, you would need 4 pairs of sunglasses.
Lens flare. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If you're in the JJ universe, then maybe.
It's normal.
Yeah,
but,
maybe you'd have goggles, like you'd have to cover your entire eye. So what I was really keen on is developing a circuit that would allow me to individually control the brightness of all the LED strips so that I could balance it and bring it down to something that was better, more scale effect. So that took a lot of work too. That's actually the most complicated circuit board I've ever done. And if I ever have to solder that up again, I will probably scream bloody murder.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what other one is, and it's image 2544. Actually, it's a video, and that's with the various blinking. It's all just mocked up. So you've got your bussard.
Yes, that one.
And that circuit board does like 4 things.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I love the pulsing orange and then the Christmas light effect.
I did. I just clicked away, so you lost me there for a sec. Or maybe you didn't lose me. I lost you. I originally used DC motors for the warp engines. So if you know, Polar Lights issued a lighting kit for this kit, which included 2 DC motors. But if you plug them in and run them, the whine is very, very loud. So DC motors have a huge whine, and it comes from a variety of sources, but mainly if they're a little bit cheaper, they have plastic gears, and the plastic gears to reduce the speed causes tremendous whine. And one thing I just didn't want is, right now it's in my dining room. The Enterprise is sitting on our hutch in our dining room, and I didn't want to drive people away with that, horrible DC motor whine. So I started, that's one of the reasons why I want to do my own motor control. And I started with DC motors. I found the most silent DC motors I've ever heard. They're made in Sweden. They're called Fallhaber motors. You could get them off eBay, but they are like $50 a piece. And they're long and they're heavy. So they have metal gears and they've got shielding to quieten them down, and they're fantastic. But they're so big and heavy that I was afraid it would make the nacelles droop over time. So I switched to stepper motors, which also are subject to a whine from the stepper motor control boards. But with 3D printers, everybody's got a 3D printer now. People have them, in their living rooms, in their bedrooms. People have 3D printers all over the place. And so companies have created these things called silent step sticks, which control stepper motors, but don't have the whine. So I switched to that, and other than the sound of the motor inside the plastic, it's pretty quiet. But it was getting those nacelles together and watching it spin up for the first time. That was something.
Yeah, I thought you had a picture in here of a foam roller insulator around.
I did. Oh, that might have been from another album, Terry. So that was from the DC motors.
Okay.
On the old Hobby Talk, well, not old, it's still around, the Hobby Talk forums. People came up with the idea of surrounding it in foam, the DC motor in foam. I tried that. The other problem was, unless that foam is super tight and holds that motor exactly in line with the bearings and the spinning half shield, you get a precession. So it wobbles, and that wobble translates to the clear hemispherical dome, and then you get this wobble thing.
Yeah, I was also going to warn people about, it's foam from a miniature paint roller.
Yes, exactly.
Those are not designed to last for very long.
No,
it would just turn to brittle mush inside your model.
Yeah, I tried to use the insulating foam you put around copper pipes for home.
Yeah, close cell would work better, but
yeah, it's much denser. But I couldn't find the diameter was too large for the nacelles. I couldn't squeeze it in and keep it, because the motor itself was a larger diameter motor, so it didn't work for me. But yeah, I abandoned that in the end. And there should be a picture of the stepper motors.
Yes,
how I attach them. Yeah,
right.
So that's great, and it's on a mount, and it's permanently attached to the mount, or
it's screwed in by bolts, so I can take it off the mount if I need. The whole front section of the warp engines, that's held in by magnets, so I can slide it out if I need to and adjust the circuit board for the lights, or adjust or change out the motors if I need to.
Very cool.
The other thing I'm very keen on is making everything accessible, so that that's why most of the boards are in the base. I know a lot of people like the Polar Lights kit. You're meant to put the boards inside the kit. I did that with my original Enterprise, and over a couple of moves, something broke, and then the running lights didn't flash anymore. They just stayed on all the time. So I'm always keen to put things in a base, which is why I also had to have a custom base, which you can see there as well. There's a guy, Stephen Burns, who I saw in a Facebook post doing custom 3D modeling work. He designed that for me based on just a couple of sketches. If maybe Terry, if it looks familiar, it's from the old the main part of it is from the old 3 Enterprise kit that AMT put out in the early 90s that had the refit, the TOS and the Enterprise D. So I just adapted that, and he modeled it in 3D, so it's hollow on the inside.
Nice.
And that's where all the boards go in. Speaking of spaghetti wires, Jeff, that's where if I open that up, that's a nightmare.
Well, I was going to say that that base beautiful job. I mean, it's a nice artful kind of combination of tying it all together. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
Stephen Burns deserves a lot of credit because he worked very hard. Those as you can see, it's not just a flat Starfleet emblem. It's angled and there's curvature to it. It was actually quite difficult for him to model, so he spent a lot of time on that. But kudos to him for doing it. It's available through him if anybody's interested as well.
Oh, great.
Yeah, looks very, very nice.
Oh,
I
yeah,
also see. Go ahead,
You're
Terry.
using vinyl masking
Yes.
as well. I like I didn't think about using that for like that rust ring.
Yeah.
Whatever that is. It's like, oh, of course. That's what I would do. I have I use my silhouette for all kinds of things.
There you go. I started with a Cricut Explorer Air 2, but then I moved up to a Silhouette Cameo 4 because it's a little bit more precise. I could do tiny little. I did all the window masks as well with the Silhouette Cameo. So all that, not just the rectangular, but the tiny circles you can do with that.
Yeah, I made a sheet full of circles, like 1 millimeter difference.
Yeah.
So then I could, mask things off. And it's like, now I've got I can't find it, but I've got a sheet full of it.
Because it's so small, you lost it. It's so small.
Another one.
Having that, I think that is one. I think for me, it was one of the biggest additions to my hobby arsenal was a vinyl cutter because I don't know about the three of you, but I make mistakes and I caught a lot of them. So if I bought Aztec Dummy, Lou Del Meso's vinyl masking kit, and I whipped through them because then, I had missed a seam. I have to sand it back and paint over it. Now I don't have those masks anymore. So I ended up having to completely recreate all the masks, and I did all the registries as well. Gary Kerr, who worked on he's the TOS Enterprise expert, worked on the Smithsonian restoration of the 11-foot miniature. He kindly guided me to help me create the right size for the NCC1701, the USS Enterprise, the banners and the little boomerang. He helped me with get all that. I did all those with masks, and I ended up having to repaint them, I think, on the secondary hull 3 times because I made mistakes. So
that's
being able to recreate it yourself.
That's what a good gloss coat's for.
Yeah, exactly. I also notice who's been buying up all the Mr. Color #1, the white, from the one picture there. Yeah, the pile
that was my
there.
Mistake. Yeah. I should only have put a dab of black when I started the mix, and I put a whole bottle in, and then I went to 3 hobby shops in Toronto, and I kept buying, and they would say, "Oh, we're out of stock," and I'd be like, "Let me know when you get more in."
Now we know who did it. Now we know who's responsible. There you go.
Yeah,
that's all right.
I emptied the Mr. Color white shelves around the city.
Yeah. So I also noticed you do some some figure work too. Do you use the Mr. Color for the figures?
No, I stuck to the lacquers because of the smell mainly, but I stick to lacquers only for ships. When I want something super durable, especially when I'm doing vinyl masks, I had done a 1/32 the Galileo, the Polar Lights kit.
Yes, I saw
and
that.
to me, acrylic. And custom colors came out really nice. Did the vinyl mask. I pulled the mask off, and it left indentations in the gloss to me acrylic because to me gloss acrylic colors take forever to really harden, and maybe never. I don't know. Whereas the lacquers harden pretty quickly and are really super durable. So I use a golden fluid acrylics for most of my figure work.
Some very nice stuff there. I see in the galleries. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. Yeah.
So what's your current project on your bench? What are you working on?
If I were to say this to my family, they would probably kick me out of the house. I'm getting ready to do a refit.
Ooh.
So I've started the circuit boards. I've started the masking, the vinyl masking.
The Aztecing.
And getting all the aftermarket parts.
Yes.
It's going to be a long project. It's a big thing to do well, I think.
Right.
So I've got that on the back, just starting. But I'm also doing. I like to switch it up and do some figure works. I think everybody's the same. If you got a big project, do something little in between
Yeah.
just to keep the fires burning.
Exactly.
So I've got some more nostalgic Aurora 60s kits that I'm figure kits I'm going to do.
Yeah, we've noticed they've really come back. They're being reissued, and there's a lot of, we talked about a couple episodes ago about nostalgia, and
Yes.
nostalgia is such a huge thing now.
It is. It is for. It's become more so for me. And I remember at one point being very scathing about the old Aurora kits, especially the monster kits, thinking,
Mhm.
"Oh, there's so much better kits now." There's
Mhm.
Billiken vinyl from the late '90s, early 2000s, but then there's been so many garage kits of the monsters. But there's an attachment to them that you can't deny, and especially for me for the comic scenes, because I was a huge comic book nerd growing up, and the comics series kits from Aurora hold such an attachment for me that I had to go back and find them and build them. And the Napoleon Solo and Ilya Kuryakin and the James Bond kits. Those
Yeah,
two,
I saw those. They look really good. Yeah.
Those are so much fun.
Oh, I know. We're all from a certain era when we were all that age.
Exactly.
My favorite wasn't one of the it was sort of a figure one, but it was the guillotine. I love the guillotine.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
very briefly available, and then yanked because of mom's complaint, I guess, or parents.
Yeah, I know those mums. I tell you,
we still had them here in Canada, but it was in the U.S. they pulled them.
That's right. We had the monster scenes too in the mid '70s, I guess. Aurora, one of the last gasps, were the Vampirilla and create. You can create your own monster scenes with Dr. Deadly. Those were around in Canada for far longer than they also got kicked out of the States.
Yeah, we're a lot sicker in Canada.
Or more progressive, one of the two, maybe a bit of both. Yeah. Maybe a bit of both. Yeah,
twisted and progressive. Yeah,
So one of the questions we also ask is, where do you see the hobby in 5 to 10 years?
I have been one of those people who thought, I've been going to Wonderfest, like I said, with Terry, 23 years now, and while at some point I've seen a dip in kits available. Right now, I mean, Polar Lights is putting out incredible kits. They've just done the Eagle. They're coming out with an interior for the shuttle. They're reissuing some of our favorite kits. Garage kits are still going strong. I think it comes and goes. There's waves of it, but I don't see it stopping anytime soon. Hobby stores, we've got great hobby stores here in Toronto that are going strong. I'm very enthusiastic, and I think during the pandemic, one of the only benefits to staying at home is there was a sudden increase in desire to build model kits. One of the stores here in Toronto, Wheels and Wings, they talked about they were shipping stuff out they couldn't keep up. People and young kids. The last time I was there, people were bringing in the young kids to build kits, and that store is stocked from floor to ceiling.
It's a dangerous store. I'm glad it's 2 hours away. Let me put it that way.
It's very dangerous store.
And no tax Tuesday.
That's right. Coming this Tuesday. No tax Tuesday.
Exactly.
And they've got the owner of the store buys lots of, I guess, people that sell their kits that he's in the basement. So you can find old kits that you don't see that have been discontinued. I love that store. I can wax eloquently on it for a
dangerous
while.
Store. Like I said, it's probably good as 2 hours away. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say.
So I see a bright future. The IPMS club in Toronto, and there's this sort of an ancillary group that Wheels and Wings has in their room upstairs, are going strong. I think COVID, stopped people getting together in person, but virtually people have gotten together. And Terry, you and I were there at Wonderfest last year.
It was doing well.
Tons of people,
and we're finding the same thing. Jeff's the secretary, and I'm the president of IPMS London. And we met virtually for a couple of years, and we're back meeting physically. We're meeting this week, but we still offer a virtual option for people because I think there's a lot of people out there who weren't able to attend, and they have those options now. So I think it's a really, really good thing. All right. Go ahead, Jeff. Were you saying to say something?
That was me. I was just going to say I traveled to Wonderfest this year with Bill Webb, and he was very enthusiastic about.
Bill had a lot of fun.
Meetings.
Yeah, Bill had an absolute ball. He was new to our club, and he's really he embraced it. He had just an amazing time. He's a really good guy.
He won. He won something there.
He did.
Right.
X-Wing.
That's right.
Yeah, he set up his Canadian X-wing in the room. We shared a room in the Canadian embassy at Wonderfest that I get every year, and he set it up and he said, I don't know, I'll put it in the contest, but I don't know. I looked at it and thought, this is wonderful. You're going to do
I know.
this. And he walked away with a bronze.
I know, that was good. See, us Canadians, we're back.
Representing.
I know. I know Terry's shaking his head. That's okay.
I had one question.
It is the year you guys couldn't come down. You were missed.
Yes.
Thanks,
Go ahead, Jeff.
I have one question for Ross, and it sort of ties back to a comment earlier about judging.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, is it possible to win for a non-lighted enterprise anymore?
You know, I think, Terry, have you judged before in the science
I
fiction?
have judged the last several years, and Trek subjects are difficult. And yes, it is possible to win a gold with a well done. Usually the lighting is, when it's done well, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
When it's not done great, it's a detractor.
Yeah.
So it is a major risk lighting a piece, and that's rarely what knocks it out. It's almost always finish.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which lighting exposes. You can have light leaks that you know.
If there's light leaks, then you're out. But
Yeah.
I've seen very beautiful last year, very beautifully finished Trek stuff, but there were visible seams.
Yeah.
I'm like, you have to do it all.
Yeah, it's the basics. It's the key with judging is always start from the basics. You got to get your seams filled. You got to get your finish smooth.
And
all
those Trek subjects, especially the later ones, the refit era and on, are so full of these little details, so full of all these little lifeboats, all these little colors patches and little reinforcing bands and all this kind of stuff. And if those aren't masked and essentially highlighted perfectly, they don't look good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we'll throw people bronzes a lot of the time, saying, please, which is a way of the judges saying, please do better. Please show me a gold next time. Show me a silver.
And one of the nice things about Wonderfist, I'm sure you know, because you've spoken to George before, Terry, is it's an open judging. So every model's judged on its merits. Mm-hmm. My sense is that Trek has been possibly overrepresented, and unless you have something that really jumps out at the judges, you may not, get that gold, and you really have to have a wow factor.
So
it can be
there. To me, if a gold at Wonderfest should be a wow factor, in any subject.
Yeah.
Show me something, not just technical perfection, but give it something, breathe some life into it. But I gotta say, it's not really that there are too many Trek subjects, or that they're not done, that they're that we're tired of them. The judges aren't tired of that stuff. We're tired of seeing bad finishes. So we're tired of seeing dust in the paint, and you're going to see that on a Trek subject.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's no hiding that. And you can't slap mud on that Panzer.
No, exactly. And that's the problem with the TOSE, and maybe even with the refit, is it's such a smooth finish. If you don't, and it's hard because I got a nice big spray booth, but it can be really hard to get rid of all that dust. But
it is.
It's
so
I flew through space mud. Yeah, that's it.
Yes.
Yeah. Space
giant
mud.
space cats.
Yeah,
giant space cats.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
With the fuzzies.
Yeah,
all right.
It's equivalent to a gloss finish on a car, like a show car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's about 15 times bigger.
Yeah.
And if the show car if you were trying to mask off and paint a full bodied vinyl wrap.
Yeah. Like I'm looking
you're gonna screw something up somewhere.
I'm thinking of Dave Gertan or Blappy's what was that the Falke thing that he did in Gulf Colors?
In the Gulf Colors,
what is in the GM?
Yeah, it's in the scale car issue from Fine Scale.
Yeah. He got props for that. Good for him, because that's an outstanding finish. Like the build is beautiful.
Essentially, he did a GT40, and they did that exact same finish on the
on the car. Yeah.
We saw that in person at the IPMS or the show at the
Heritage Con. Heritage Con.
Yeah.
No, it's a beautiful kit.
He was
Exactly.
Dave was my go-to when I was started with the lacquer and the gloss and trying to get a really nice finish. He was my go-to to help me. He told me he put me onto the Mr. Lacquer or Mr. Color leveling thinner.
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
unicorn tears. We call it
Oh,
unicorn tears. Yeah,
holy Christ!
isn't that great?
It's
Just beautiful.
fantastic.
I know.
And big props to Dave for helping me with the paint job.
Cool. Well, that's what's nice about the hobby. You know, people are usually pretty good about wanting to help
Yeah.
and, you know, give some advice and stuff like that. All right, Ross, we're going to let you go because I know you're up against the clock. We really appreciate you joining us tonight.
I really appreciate being asked.
All right, well, we'll have to definitely have you back on, and we're definitely going to see you at Heritage Con in only a few months. And I know Wonderfest isn't 200 something days away, 206 days as of the time I'm recording this right now.
I gotta book my room.
Yes, June 10th, 11th, 2023. Return of the Builders, 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi.
That's right.
God,
very exciting.
I know. All right. Well, a pleasure to see you, and thank you again for joining us.
Thank you very much, all of you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ross. See ya.
Take care, Ross.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.